In this episode of Voice of the Sea, we're in American Samoa, where sea level is rising faster than anywhere else in the US and almost 3 times faster than the global average. In response, engineers, scientists, planners, and community members have worked together to develop a new tool, the American Samoa Sea Level Rise Viewer, to help officials in villages predict and plan for upcoming changes. We visit the areas most at risk and check out local impacts. First, we meet with port administration representatives at the Pago Pago International Airport and the Inter-Island Wharf at the Port of Pago Pago Harbor.
There are so many Samoans that live off of our islands here. There are more Samoans that live in America, New Zealand, Australia, than there are Samoans that actually live on the Samoan Islands. To be able to ensure that people, Samoans that are off island, can still come home and be with their families again is very, very important. And then also for the Samoans that live on the island, it's so important that they get all the goods that they need in order to sustain life on these islands. Everything that comes to our islands comes through either our airports or our seaports. In American Samoa, we have 3 airports. So this is our international airport here on Tutuila. And then on the island of Ta'u, we have the Fitiuta Airport. And then on the island of Ofu, we have the Ofu Airport. 2 of the 3 are impacted by tidal events. Our runways are located adjacent to the ocean, and it's pretty clear during high tides, especially king tides, that the sea level around our runways is rising. Our Ofu Airport in July of 2022, the runway was shut down during a king tide event because sand, coral, coconut palms, they were thrown all over the runway and planes couldn't land there. Here at our Pago Pago International Airport, we have blowholes that are adjacent to our runway, and from those blowholes they send debris onto the runway, coral, sand. Before any planes can land, we have to clear all that debris. Our runway was created by dredging out Pala Lagoon. So our runway is a man-made mass of land. In order for us to maintain it, we may have to continue to dredge and raise the elevation.
This is when they were building the airport for the military. This is the shoulder runway. The main runway that hasn't been, it's not on a map yet. So this is that runway that didn't have a pump.
Do you know what they use to fill the land to make the
They
river?
actually dredge here.
How many feet above sea level would you say the runway is?
The runway is at 9 feet on the eastern side and 31 feet on the western side.
Sometimes we have to bring truckloads of dirt to fill in some soft spots because our trucks that we have running along the side of the runway are getting stuck in soft ground now that's, now saltwater ponds.
So this is one of the areas that, that's being eaten from underneath. The water's been coming in.
This is really bad. Here's all the debris that keeps rushing up. But can you see all the salt spray up ahead that's just kicking up over the runway? And then you'll see the blowhole ahead. That's actually where it shoots debris up into the air and then onto the runway. We have to fix this because we don't have a lot of land on Tutuila. It's a very small island. There's not a lot of flat land. So it seems that we have to armor and bulk up our defense from the ocean.
It's scary. There was a lot of land mass, and now we just sort of receding. We're getting smaller and smaller and going under.
We are at the Inter-Island dock here in the Port of Pago Pago. This dock is utilized for vessels coming from the independent state of Samoa, and then also our local boats that service the islands of Manua.
And what other terminals are here in Pago Pago Harbor?
Well, we have the container terminal that services all of the container vessels that come in, and then it's a multifunctional type of dock. So we could put fishing boats there as well, and then sometimes vessels that do surveys and things of that nature, even military boats that come in. And then we also have a fuel dock, which is mostly utilized to fuel all our local boats. If the harbor isn't open, then it's really hard to get supplies to for the people of American Samoa. We have flights going to the mainland and back, but it's just for passengers mostly. You cannot carry bulk material, you cannot carry machinery, you cannot carry numbers of reefer containers that bring in food supplies.
I'm a senior engineer for the Seaport Division under the Port Administration. So it's not just here at the Port of Pago Pago, we also watch over the different 5 small boat harbors of American Samoa, which includes Aunu'u, Au'ashi, Ta'u, Ofu, and Faleashao.
And what are some of the challenges that you're facing as the senior engineer here?
The sea level rise is here in American Samoa is moving at a very fast rate. So from what I understand is not only is the sea level rising, but also the land is sinking. So one of the things that we're doing is that we call it future proofing. So we're not only building for the project to improve what it is right now, but we're also looking to make sure that it's going to survive any type of natural disasters or any type of extreme weather 50 years or 100 years down the road. So we actually have a lot of data from NOAA that we use to predict what is going to be the sea level rise. Some of the other challenges here at the Port of Pago Pago is that further on the west end we have what's called our net yard. And so if you can see that on our net yard, the ocean is eating away at the land, which is causing a lot of issues for us, especially safety concerns. We're working on trying to address this issue by trying to build shoreline protection for the area. This is just a prime example of coastal erosion here along the Port of Pago Pago.
And do things like the sea level rise viewer, being able to visualize the potential changes in sea level, help you to design your work for the future?
Yeah, the sea level rise viewer is definitely a big tool for us. So we're able to go online, use this tool in order to be able to predict what we think that the sea level will be at a certain year. And so we use that data in order for us to not only justify more funding from the federal government, we also use it to make sure that the levels that we're building at are going to be able to use it in 50 years. So I'm born and raised here in American Samoa. I'm from the beautiful village of Leone, which is on the far west. All the issues with sea level rise, I've seen it, growing up. So, I see it from my own eyes, I feel it. I see it here at the port. Growing up here, I'm able to, I experience it firsthand what the negative effects are and impacts are to the American Samoa.
What are some of those effects you've seen to your community, to your village?
Yeah, so one of the things during extreme weather, the flooding in these areas is a lot worse than what it is when we were growing up. And it's getting worse every single year. They destroy crops, plantations, which really affect the livelihood of people in American Samoa. And especially during the King Tides event of 2022, you can see major flooding on the roads, especially along the coastal villages. And that closes down a lot of stuff. People can't go to work, kids can't go to school, people can't get to the store, and people can't get any medical treatment if they needed it. And so another thing too is growing up here at the Utule Beach. I remember growing up, there used to be a very sandy area in the front of the Utule Beach, but now there's no more sand there. The water is right along the edge of the roads. People can see the real effects it's having. The beaches are disappearing, and the flooding, from weather is, it's something you can really feel and see here in American Samoa.
What are your hopes for the future?
Yeah, so I think based on from what I've seen, we still have time to address these issues. If we want land for our future generations to live on, that's something we have to fight for today.
The University of Hawaii's Sea Grant College program focused on Hawaii's coasts and its communities through sustainable development, safe seafood supply, sustainable coastal tourism, hazard resilience, and healthy coastal ecosystems. Hawaii's Sea Grant.
You're watching Voice of the Sea. We're in American Samoa, learning about how these islands are being affected by rising seas and local land subsidence. Kelly Anderson Tagarino has been living, teaching, and working in American Samoa for 12 years, helping the community with job training, living shoreline installations, and measuring and reporting of sea level rise information. Fatima Sawafea has helped to bring villagers, planners, and scientists together, translating and sharing knowledge across cultures. Is the rising sea level affecting your village in Aua?
Yeah, so rising sea level rise, obviously that's the most obvious climate change impacts here on a very small island. And that's why we have a lot of these shoreline protection projects to protect our water from the rising sea. A lot of this has caused problems with water intrusion underground, for underground water. Some of the community, like in Aunuu Island, they stated that there's seawater intrusion into their groundwater, which is a source of drinking water for the community. Villages along the coast, they have taro plantation. Seawater underground has been affecting those resources.
The whole east side has been having salty water for at least 15 years, and the island of Aunuu has also been very salty for that time.
So this salty water is affecting your drinking water, your bath water, basically all your potable, usable water.
Yeah, so in American Samoa, our main aquifers are on the west end of the island, and that's really good quality water. And then the water source for the east side of Tutuila comes from the Pongo Aua area, which is lower lying, and is probably why those wells have been salty for so long.
Can you tell me a little bit about where we are here?
Yeah, so we're in the village of Nu'uli, and this area is Nu'uli Uta, or the back of the village. It's also called Coconut Point for all of the coconut trees. We've seen really dramatic changes in terms of the amount of dry land and the encroachment of the tidal zone. Even minor storms have caused really significant land loss here. We used to enjoy when there was big waves, and now when we hear them, it's like, oh no, how much land are we losing now? I feel like we're in a front seat row to the sea level rise acceleration here. We used to have grass, like lush yard kind of grass all the way up to there. And now obviously it's kind of all intertidal zone. And when we have the big tides, especially with wind or swell, the water will come up almost to their door now.
And I understand that you guys are evacuating on kind of a regular basis.
If it's something in the Tongan Trench, we only have 14 minutes from the time of the quake till the time the wave hits. If there is something that is close by that's above a 7.0, we just evacuate. We at Coconut Point have the longest evacuation time anywhere in the territory.
Oh my goodness.
Our islands, like most old volcanic islands, they had a background subsidence rate, which is normal, of around 1 to 2 millimeters a year. And we have an instrument in Tafuna, just the other side of this Pala Lagoon, that has been measuring that since 2002. And it showed the 1 to 2 millimeters a year, but it showed a very dramatic shift during the earthquakes that caused the tsunami in 2009. And our subsidence rate shot up to about 16 millimeters a year. And it's been slowing since then, but of course sea level rise in general is growing. So overall we've seen about 10 inches of sea level rise since 2009. So we didn't have any ground control points in our Manua Islands, Ta'u, Ofu, and Olasenga, but I was able to work with some colleagues at the UH Sea Level Center to put in tide gauges out there, as well as in Aunuu and on the east side of Tutuila in Awasi. We believe they are geologically distinct enough. They might have different rates of the way they're readjusting. We really want to get that information so that we can give the communities there better information to plan on. There's whole villages that are discussing, do we move up the mountain? And if we do that, what does that mean for our loved ones who are in the ground? How do we leave them? Do we bring them? We have so much work to do for this rapid sea level rise adaptation, but not enough people to do it with. I always try and encourage people, if you're interested in coming home, we can find funding and get you a job to help you help your community. The concept of giving back, or tautua, service to others, is really strong in Samoa, and so I see my role as just being able to connect people with those opportunities. Yes, ma'am.
We are looking for a few heroes, mentors, trailblazers, innovators, a passion to change lives, spark curiosity, open hearts, and awaken minds, help students answer the question, who am I? This could be your calling, but this is no job. It's the journey of a lifetime. Be a hero. Be a teacher.
You're watching Voice of the Sea. We're talking about sea level rise in American Samoa with the sea level rise viewer builders themselves, Phil Thompson and Carla Beziu from the School of Ocean and Earth Science and Technology at UH Manoa.
There are lots of sea level rise viewers available to people, right? And they offer a lot of really great information for lots of places all over the Pacific and also around the world. But American Samoa is unique for a couple of reasons. One of them is that the government itself is sort of distributed, right? The decisions are made at the village level. The sea level rise information also needs to be available at the village and sub-village level, so to facilitate those decisions at that local level, that hyper-local level. And so what we needed to do was to have a high-resolution sea level rise viewer. So recently, NOAA flew a LiDAR from an aircraft. It's a laser they put on an aircraft, and you go over the land, and it measures the height of the land. And so from that, they were able to do a high-resolution, very accurate map of the land elevation, and we were able to use that to then map the impact of sea level rise in the future in a very fine-scale way. And the other reason that American Samoa is unique is the rate of sea level rise in American Samoa is very fast. And a lot of that is because of the local subsidence of the land. There's a lot of differences from one region to the next and from one location to the next. You can actually see here in this map is sea level trends over the last 15 years. So the shading here, all the little contours, that's from satellites, but then each of these little dots that you see here on the map, those are from tide gauges. So those are local measurements of sea level rise. What you see is there's a lot of variability, right? It's certainly not just the ocean rising like the water in a bathtub. American Samoa, from a purely trend in sea level rise perspective, it's the most vulnerable Pacific island. Here's American Samoa right here. And you can see not only is it in a place where in this background colors, you can see that there's higher rates of sea level rise, so the more red it is, the higher the rate is. Out of all the dots here you see on this map, all these locations, it's the second highest rate in the whole world. It's about 7 inches per decade. About 2 to 3 inches per decade of that is from this background, just the ocean rising. But the rest of that is due to vertical land motion following the 2009 earthquake. So after the earthquake occurred, there was a jolt in the ocean crust that caused the island to rapidly subside and fall. After that initial shock, there's also kind of a slow relaxation of the ocean crust that occurs after that. And that's called post-seismic subsidence. And so after that initial shock in the fall of the land, then the land has continued to sort of slowly fall after that, and it will continue to do so for decades. We expect that maybe by the middle to the last quarter of the 21st century that relaxation will be complete. But until then, we can expect American Samoa to experience greater than average sea level rise. In response to what's going on there in American Samoa, our group here at the UH Sea Level Center, we just installed 4 additional tide gauges, 2 on Tutuila, the main island of American Samoa, but also 2 out in the Manua Islands. One of the features that we built into this viewer that's unique is that most sea level rise viewers tend to focus more on changes in like the high tide level. Where's the high tide line and how is it moving over time? But of course, you want to know more than where just the high tide is, right? What you care about is how often your road is going to get flooded. How often are the steps of your hospital going to get flooded? These types of things, right? So it's not just about where the high tide is, it's also about the less frequent but still impactful flooding that might occur on roads and parking lots in your school. For example, on our flooding tool, you can look at what's called mean high water. This is essentially the high tide line. Or you can look at flooding, where will the flooding be occurring 20 days per year or 50 days per year, so that you can look at areas that aren't necessarily under water per se, but they're still being impacted by sea level rise, which is important to know.
Today we are in Utale, and we are in the valley next to Utale, which is right next to the Office of Samoan Affairs, which is the organization that has all the mayors and all the matais, all the chiefs of each village. And a year ago, I was lucky enough to present the Sea Level Rise viewer at one of their meetings here.
Tell me about some of the discussions that went on during these presentations.
It was really impactful, firsthand seeing people looking at the tool and seeing what their village was going to look like, or what the impacts they've seen in the past was also going to look like in the future.
For the sea level rise itself, I would like to better understand how it's measured on an actual basis. Like, there are tide gauges, but there are satellites. So how do these different technologies work together to give us an estimate of today's sea level heights?
Those two components that you've mentioned, the satellites and the tide gauges, they don't measure exactly the same thing. So the satellite will measure just the water itself and how much it will rise or fall. So it will depend, for example, because of temperature, or if we add on water coming from land, so all the ice sheets and all the glaciers. But the tide gauge also gets the components of the land, so all this vertical land motion and land subsidence. What is important is to have a long enough record and like a long enough time to get a mean of all the fluctuations that we have, for example, all the tides, all the swells events, and so we can dampen all those big extremes and like make a kind of average of what sea level is. And so this is my thesis, looking at how we can better implement models with specific information tied to each place.
What skills do you need to be a person who's able to build a sea level rise viewer?
You need good people around you, like Kelly or Phil, my advisor. Actually, those are the ones that just carried me through all of this process. Mostly what I've used is computer stuff, so like a language, like a computer language would be interesting to have. We can teach people how to do if they want to do it. I don't think that is too tricky to make now.
That's really interesting, because I imagine that there are many other places in addition to American Samoa that would benefit from a visual representation.
Yes, yeah, this is why it's really important for every Pacific Islands to have a little bit more information and data sets. Like, the elevation of the land is a big one and it's tricky to get, but once we have that and a tide gauge then and projections, then we kind of good.
And someone like you to align the data points.
Yeah. A little bit of alignment to do, and then we're good to go. As long as we understand what's happening, yeah, we're good to go. And that would be cool to have them for different places. It's a really important tool, I think. Yeah.
Visit the American Samoa Sea Level Rise viewer to learn more, and check out the other available sea level rise projections to visualize sea level rise where you live. Learn more at voiceofthesea.org. Follow us on social media at Voice of the Sea TV. Mahalo for watching Voice of the Sea. Exploring Our Fluid Earth is the dynamic curriculum developed by the University of Hawaii's Curriculum Research and Development Group. The award-winning Fluid Earth and Living Ocean textbooks are now interactive and online. New activities, updated content, and a teacher community. Exploring Our Fluid Earth is now freely available. Find out more at exploringourfluidearth.org.